the life of the woman driving the ship to Mars. The head of the engineering team that just successfully landed the Perseverance spacecraft on Mars is an Indian-American woman. This has made millions of Indians curious to find information about her on the internet in recent days. But, like many other senior NASA employees, her private life is not very public. Thursday, February 18, 2021 at 3:55 p.m. Eastern Time in the Western Hemisphere on Earth, the Perseverance spacecraft landed at the Jezero crater on the Red Planet, after a flight of over 407 million kilometers in 6 months. The event was televised around the world in special news, announcing that mankind's space exploration had turned to a new page with spaceships searching for traces of life beyond Earth. Simply take thousands of landscape photos. In those news reports, you've probably seen Swati Mohan, the woman with the bindy dot in the center of her forehead sitting in the front row of the control room, constantly updating the crew on the flight progress. The driver of the Perseverance certified landing, said Mohan's voice over the loudspeaker, followed by applause throughout the control room at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, in Pasadena, California, the American West. Percy is safe on the surface of Mars, ready to start looking for traces of one's life, Mohan continued to cheers from her colleagues, her voice shaking a little perhaps with emotion. The ship is officially named Perseverance, but Mohan, like his colleagues at JPL, calls it a more petite name, Percy. Despite being told to land safely, Percy had actually landed more than a dozen minutes ago. This time delay is due to the fact that the transmission between Mars and Earth takes 11 minutes to arrive. That was a contributing factor to what crews have long called the 7 minutes of terror, when the craft entered the Red Planet's thousands-degree hot atmosphere in 7 minutes, and with that much time had to be reduced. Speed from 12,000 kilometers, h to 0, and Earth does not have enough time to send any commands to handle if something goes wrong. When we determined that Perseverance had reached the atmosphere, it had actually been on the ground for a few minutes, said Dalen Chen, who was in charge of controlling the Curiosity spacecraft that landed on Mars in 2012. Perseverance flight control team member, explained. More than 50 Mars exploration missions have been launched by many countries since 1962, with only 8 successful landings. So, Perseverance's landing is a miracle, especially when this SUV-sized ship is the heaviest, 1,026 kilograms, ever sent to Mars. Mohan, who is in charge of the crew for the EDL phase, entry, descent, and landing, is not only the main operator, but also the assistant, responsible for the design and development of a new way of making ships land smoother. It's Terrain Relative Navigation, TRN, technology that allows for the first time a rover to use cameras to look at the Martian surface and choose the right landing location, instead of just relying on radar signals. Like previous generations of ships and then blindly fell into a canyon, a cliff and shattered. TRN allows Perseverance to look at the ground, compare it to the map on board and determine where it is. This is similar to a person looking at street signs and comparing with the map to determine where it is. Where am I? Mohan explained to the India Times. Little girl who loves Star Trek movie. An hour before the spacecraft landed, Earth stopped transmitting commands, and from there the rover, self-passed the ELD and used TRN to choose to land on a flat spot in the middle of one of the most dangerous regions on Mars. When asked why they chose to land in a place full of craters and jagged rocks like Jezero crater, Mohan said the team believes that this place holds traces of microbial life, and because TRN technology can help the ship avoid dangerous terrain and landed safely. From here on, with TRN, the exploration trains have had enough eyes and ears to hear and see Mars. The onboard recorder sent back to Earth audio recordings of the sounds on the Red Planet. Even though there were only electronic crackles, it was still the first time Earth heard Mars speak. To prepare for those brief but important moments, Swati Mohan has worked hard at NASA for many years. Before Perseverance, she was involved in space exploration projects such as Cassini, a rover to explore Saturn, and Grail, a flight that sent a duo around the Moon. Moen began working on the Mars 2020 mission in 2013 and eventually became chief engineer for guidance, operations, operational control, and command of the directional control system. Our job is to figure out how we're orienting, to make sure the craft is flying correctly in space, battery towards the sun, antenna towards Earth, and directing the craft to where we want it to go. Moen explained in the Q&A section on NASA's website. Moen's passion for space began decades ago. That's when the 9-year-old Swati Moen was watching the popular fantasy television series Star Trek, ecstatic with the large, beautiful universe and bewitched by Captain James T. Kirk of the Enterprise. But Moen always thought he'd grow up to be a pediatrician, until he started studying physics at the age of 16 with a wonderful teacher and knew that to explore the universe required a job in engineering. Art. Moen studied mechanical and aerospace engineering at Cornell University, and then earned a master's and doctorate in space travel and aeronautics from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. Finally, the female doctor landed at NASA. But like all senior NASA experts, Swati Moen's personal information on the internet is nothing more than the introduction on the NASA website. The article summarizes Moen's work history at this agency, previous education, a story about inspiration from Star Trek and a line that reads, Swati Moen immigrated to the U.S. from India when he was 1 year old. Aged and raised in Northern Virginia, Central Washington, D.C. Some websites fishing for Indian views immediately rumored that Moen was so passionate about his career that he was not married and did not have a boyfriend. Wrong, so wrong. That's because in a rare interview with India's Sunday Guardian newspaper in August 2020, Moen said she has 2 daughters, her husband is a microbiologist and also a pediatric infectious disease physician. His name is Santosh, an American born in the same city of Bangalore in southern India as her. My parents still have a house in Bangalore and they still go there every year. I still have relatives in Bangalore and elsewhere in India, Moen revealed. She was raised by her parents with strong Indian values and still visits her hometown every few years. On his personal Twitter page, which usually only updates on the progress of the project, Moen still has a post about celebrating with his family the Hindu festival of Diwali in the context of limited contact due to the COVID-19 epidemic. On the day Percy was about to land on Mars, the female lead engineer in charge of the landing team dyed a few strands of purple in her hair and attached a few white stars, then arrived at JPL at 5:30 a.m. The ship flew for 203 days and during that time Moen ate and slept with the flight in day and night shifts. Now that Perseverance has begun searching for life on Mars, the task of navigating the spacecraft has been left to other research teams. Moen and her female colleagues on the team in charge of landing have a job. Other interesting things, giving interviews, the most recent being an interview with CBS, inspiring women to study science and technology and get involved in space research, that the universe is out there. Open to every woman from Earth.